The alert came during the graveyard shift at Earth's deep space listening post Omega. Dr. Sarah Chen had been reviewing routine stellar data when the quantum receivers suddenly lit up like a Christmas tree. The message that followed would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. This is an emergency broadcast from the Kelleran Collective, the AI translation matrix rendered in crisp text. Our colony worlds are under attack by the Drachnid Imperium. They show no mercy. Our children are dying. Please, anyone who can hear this, help us. Sarah's hands trembled as she initiated first contact protocols. Within hours, the United Earth Defense Council chamber was packed with military brass and civilian leadership. The massive holographic displays showed the Kelleran message repeating endlessly, each iteration more desperate than the last. Admiral Helena Santos stood before the assembled council, her dark eyes scanning the room. The Kellerans are a species we've never encountered before, but our long-range probes have detected their civilization. They're about 50 light-years ahead of us technologically, but they focus their advancement on art, medicine, and environmental harmony rather than warfare. And these Drachnids. General Marcus Wong's voice cut through the murmuring crowd. Conquerors. Slavers. Their ships are heavily armed, and their troops are cybernetically enhanced. They're currently about 75 light-years ahead of our technology. The room erupted in heated debate. Earth had only achieved faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. The idea of confronting a species with such advanced technology seemed suicidal to many. Commander David Riley watched the chaos from his position near the back wall. At 42, he'd spent half his life preparing humanity's first deep space battle fleet. Everyone had told him he was wasting his time. That space was vast and empty, that humanity would never need warships. Now he allowed himself a grim smile. They'd been wrong about the empty part. He hoped they were wrong about the warships too. We can't possibly intervene, Senator Williams was saying. The risk to Earth. The risk to Earth already exists. Riley spoke up, his voice cutting through the noise. All eyes turned to him as he stepped forward. The Drachnids aren't going to stop with the Kellerans. Sooner or later, they'll find us. The only question is whether we face them now, while they're distracted, and we have potential allies, or later when they can focus their full attention on Earth. Admiral Santos nodded. Commander Riley has a point, but there's something else you should all know. She manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up environmental data. The Drachnids evolved on a world with 1/3 Earth's gravity and a perfectly regulated climate. The Kellerans come from a similar paradise world. To them, we're Deathworlders, creatures who evolved in conditions they consider hellish. Riley's smile grew wider. You mean all our disadvantages are actually advantages? Our denser muscle mass, our stronger bones, our ability to survive extreme conditions. Exactly. Their ships are designed for comfort. Ours are designed to withstand the worst space can throw at us. Their troops are enhanced to make them stronger by their standards. Our troops are already naturally stronger than their enhanced soldiers. The council chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. Humanity had spent its entire existence believing it had drawn the short straw, evolving on a high-gravity world with extreme weather, dangerous predators, and constant natural disasters. Now they were learning that these very hardships had forged them into something unique in the galaxy. General Wong stood. Commander Riley, how quickly can your fleet be ready? 24 hours, sir. We've been running combat drills for years. The ships are fully stocked and the crews are trained. And you believe we can make a difference despite the technology gap? Riley thought of all the times in human history when superior technology had fallen to superior determination, adaptability, and sheer grit. The Drachnids have never faced an enemy who could truly fight back, sir. They've never had to adapt or improvate. They've never faced Deathworlders. The council voted. The decision was unanimous. Within hours, humanity's first battle fleet was preparing for departure. As Riley walked to his flagship, the UES Thunderchild, he looked up at the stars. Soon the galaxy would learn that Earth's harsh conditions hadn't created savages, they'd created protectors. Because that was the real truth about Deathworlders. They didn't just survive hell. They learned to thrive in it. And now they would teach the Drachnids what happened when you threatened those under their protection. All hands, Riley's voice echoed through the ship's comm system. Battle stations. We have people to save. The Thunderchild's engines roared to life, a sound soon multiplied by dozens of other ships. Humanity's first interstellar rescue mission had begun. The Deathworlders were coming, not with conquest in mind, but with the fire and fury of righteous protection. The alert came during the graveyard shift at Earth's deep space listening post Omega. Dr. Sarah Chen had been reviewing routine stellar data when the quantum receivers suddenly lit up like a Christmas tree. The message that followed would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. This is an emergency broadcast from the Kelleran Collective, the AI translation matrix rendered in crisp text. Our colony worlds are under attack by the Drachnid Imperium. They show no mercy. Our children are dying. Please, anyone who can hear this, help us. Sarah's hands trembled as she initiated first contact protocols. Within hours, the United Earth Defense Council chamber was packed with military brass and civilian leadership. The massive holographic displays showed the Kelleran message repeating endlessly, each iteration more desperate than the last. Admiral Helena Santos stood before the assembled council, her dark eyes scanning the room. The Kellerans are a species we've never encountered before, but our long-range probes have detected their civilization. They're about 50 light-years ahead of us technologically, but they focus their advancement on art, medicine, and environmental harmony rather than warfare. And these Drachnids. General Marcus Wong's voice cut through the murmuring crowd. Conquerors, slavers. Their ships are heavily armed, and their troops are cybernetically enhanced. They're currently about 75 light-years ahead of our technology. The room erupted in heated debate. Earth had only achieved faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. The idea of confronting a species with such advanced technology seemed suicidal to many. Commander David Riley watched the chaos from his position near the vac wall. At 42, he'd spent half his life preparing humanity's first deep space battle fleet. Everyone had told him he was wasting his time. That space was vast and empty, that humanity would never need warships. Now he allowed himself a grim smile. They'd been wrong about the empty part. He hoped they were wrong about the warships too. We can't possibly intervene, Senator Williams was saying. The risk to Earth. The risk to Earth already exists. Riley spoke up, his voice cutting through the noise. All eyes turned to him as he stepped forward. The Drachnids aren't going to stop with the Kellerans. Sooner or later, they'll find us. The only question is whether we face them now, while they're distracted, and we have potential allies, or later when they can focus their full attention on Earth. Admiral Santos nodded. Commander Riley has a point, but there's something else you should all know. She manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up environmental data. The Drachnids evolved on a world with 1/3 Earth's gravity and a perfectly regulated climate. The Kellerans come from a similar paradise world. To them, we're Deathworlders, creatures who evolved in conditions they consider hellish. Riley's smile grew wider. You mean all our disadvantages are actually advantages? Our denser muscle mass, our stronger bones, our ability to survive extreme conditions. Exactly. Their ships are designed for comfort. Ours are designed to withstand the worst space can throw at us. Their troops are enhanced to make them stronger by their standards. Our troops are already naturally stronger than their enhanced soldiers. The council chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. Humanity had spent its entire existence believing it had drawn the short straw, evolving on a high-gravity world with extreme weather, dangerous predators, and constant natural disasters. Now they were learning that these very hardships had forged them into something unique in the galaxy. General Wong stood. Commander Riley, how quickly can your fleet be ready? 24 hours, sir. We've been running combat drills for years. The ships are fully stocked and the crews are trained. And you believe we can make a difference despite the technology gap. Riley thought of all the times in human history when superior technology had fallen to superior determination, adaptability, and sheer grit. The Drachnids have never faced an enemy who could truly fight back, sir. They've never had to adapt or improvise. They've never faced Deathworlders. The Council voted. The decision was unanimous. Within hours, humanity's first battle fleet was preparing for departure. As Riley walked to his flagship, the UES Thunderchild, he looked up at the stars. Soon the galaxy would learn that Earth's harsh conditions hadn't created savages. They'd created protectors. Because that was the real truth about Deathworlders. They didn't just survive hell. They learned to thrive in it. And now they would teach the Drachnids what happened when you threatened those under their protection. All hands, Riley's voice echoed through the ship's comm system. Battle stations, we have people to save. The Thunderchild's engines roared to life, a sound soon multiplied by dozens of other ships. Humanity's first interstellar rescue mission had begun. The Deathworlders were coming, not with conquest in mind, but with the fire and fury of righteous protection. Part 2. The PRIC of Evolution. Lieutenant Maya Patel stood in the Thunderchild's training simulator, her breath steady despite the crushing 3G environment. Around her, 24 Marines ran combat drills in powered armor designed to amplify their already formidable strength. The suits were a marvel of human engineering, not because they were particularly advanced, but because they were specifically designed to take advantage of humanity's natural resilience. Looking good, people, Maya called out as her squad executed a perfect breach and clear maneuver. The Drachnids won't know what hit them. Dr. Chen's voice came over the comm. Lieutenant, Commander Riley requests your presence on the bridge. We got some new intel on the enemy. Maya found Riley studying tactical displays with Admiral Santos, who had chosen to accompany the mission. The hologram showed detailed scans of Drachnid ship designs, their gleaming hulls more resembling luxury cruises than warships. Their environmental systems are their weakness, Riley explained, highlighting specific sections. They maintain their ships at exactly 1/3 Earth gravity, with perfectly regulated temperature and atmosphere. They literally can't function without these conditions. And their enhanced troops? Maya asked, thinking of her Marines. Admiral Santos pulled up comparison data. Their cybernetic enhancements are impressive, by their standards. They boost their strength to about half of what an unaugmented human can achieve in Earth gravity. They've never needed more because they've never fought anyone stronger. That's not the best part, Riley added. Dr. Chen, show her what you found. Sarah Chen stepped forward, her excitement barely contained. Their ship's life support systems can't adapt quickly to changing conditions. A sudden shift in gravity or atmospheric pressure would completely incapacitate them. They've built their entire civilization around maintaining perfect stability. Maya grinned. While we've spent our entire history adapting to instability, every natural disaster, every climate shift, every predator we've faced has made us stronger. Exactly, Riley nodded. Our ships can function in virtually any conditions. Our troops train in environments that would kill a Drachnid. Even our civilian population is naturally tougher than their elite warriors. But sir, Maya's expression grew serious. Won't they just blast us out of space with their advanced weapons? That's where your team comes in, Lieutenant. Their weapons are powerful, but they're designed for ship-to-ship combat at long range. They've never had to deal with boarding actions because no species they've encountered could survive their internal defenses. Understanding dawned on Maya's face. But we can. Their artificial gravity and atmospheric controls are actually protection for them, not us. Precisely. While their main fleet engages us, your Marines will board their command ships. In Earth normal gravity, with your powered armor, you'll be unstoppable. They won't even be able to stand up, let alone fight back. Maya thought about the implications. Humanity had always viewed its harsh evolutionary history as a curse. Their heavy bones and dense muscles seemed primitive compared to the sleek, cybernetically enhanced drachnids. But those same primitive traits would now prove to be their greatest advantage. "There's something else you should know," Sarah added quietly. "We've decoded more of the Kelleran transmissions. The drachnids aren't just conquering them. They're harvesting their worlds for resources, destroying entire ecosystems. They see any environment different from their own as worthless." Maya felt her jaw tighten. As a species that had learned to value and protect their own world's harsh but vibrant ecosystem, the idea of such callous destruction was abhorrent. "Then it's not just about saving the Kellerans, is it? It's about stopping them before they destroy more worlds." "Exactly," Riley confirmed. "We're not just fighting for the Kellerans. We're fighting for every world that doesn't match the drachnid's idea of perfection." The ship's AI announced their approach to the first jump point. Soon they would cross into Kelleran space, where the real test would begin. Maya headed back to her Marines, her purpose crystal clear. Humanity had paid a heavy price for their evolution, surviving countless hardships that had forged them into something unique in the galaxy. Now it was time to show the galaxy that those same hardships had also taught them the value of protecting others. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were bringing with them every lesson their harsh world had taught them about survival, adaptation, and the fierce determination to protect what mattered. When Titan's Kilaesh, the human fleet dropped out of FTL drive at the edge of the Kelleran Oasis system, sensors immediately lighting up with combat signatures. Through the Thunderchild's main viewport, Commander Riley watched as massive drachnid warships orbited a once beautiful garden world, their mining beams cutting deep scars into its surface. "Life signs?" he asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Multiple Kelleran refugee concentrations detected underground," Dr. Chen reported, her fingers dancing over the sensor controls. "They've built shelter networks beneath their major cities. Atmospheric contamination from the drachnid mining operations is making surface survival difficult." "Drachnid fleet composition," Admiral Santos demanded. 27 capital ships, over 50 support vessels," Lieutenant Paddle reported from the tactical station. "Their flagship is 3 times our size. Energy readings suggest their weapons technology significantly exceeds our projections." Riley allowed himself a grim smile. "But their environmental vulnerabilities are exactly as we predicted. Status of Operation Gravity. Engineering teams are ready," Maya confirmed. "The moment we breach their hulls, we can override their environmental systems. They won't know what hit them." The drachnid ships finally seemed to notice the human fleet's arrival. A transmission cut through their comm systems, automatically translated by their eye. "Primitive vessels, you have entered restricted space. The Drachnid Imperium claims this system and all its resources. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Riley straightened in his command chair. "Return transmission, all frequencies. This is Commander David Riley of the United Earth Defense Force. We're responding to a distress call from the Kelleran Collective. Your forces are engaged in illegal mining operations and the destruction of settled worlds. Withdraw your forces immediately." Laughter echoed through the comm system. "Earthers, the Deathworlders. Your species barely understands faster than light travel. You dare to challenge the Imperium." "Last warning," Riley responded calmly. "Withdraw." The answer came in the form of plasma fire. A massive energy beam lanced out from the Drachnid flagship, powerful enough to vaporize a small moon. But human ships were built differently. The Thunderchild's hull, designed to withstand the crushing pressures of gas giant storms and the heat of solar flares, absorbed and dispersed the energy. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Prometheus," Riley ordered. "Lieutenant Patel, prepare your boarding teams." The human fleet split into pre-planned formations, their movements appearing chaotic to the Drachnid's tactical computers. Their ships accelerated and decelerated at rates that would have killed most species, using the high-G maneuvers they'd trained for all their lives. Their targeting systems can't adjust to our movement patterns, Sarah reported excitedly. They've never encountered ships that can pull these kinds of G-forces. The Drachnid fleet's formation began to break apart as they tried to track the erratically moving human vessels. Their next volley of plasma fire mostly missed, the few hits they scored being absorbed by hulls designed for far worse punishment. Now, Riley ordered. Human ships suddenly charged straight at the Drachnid vessels, closing to point-blank range. At these distances, the Drachnid's heavy energy weapons were too slow to track their targets. Meanwhile, human gunners, their reflexes honed by generations of evolution in a high-gravity environment, opened up with railguns and tactical nuclear torpedoes. The first Drachnid ship shields collapsed under the barrage. Inside the Thunderchild, Maya Patel led her Marine team to the launch bay. Their drop pods, little more than heavily armored shells with maneuvering thrusters, were designed to survive atmospheric re-entry. Punching through a ship's hull would be easy by comparison. "Remember your training," Maya told her team as they sealed their armor. "The moment we breach, engineering will override their environmental controls. They'll be dealing with Earth normal gravity while we're in powered armor. Don't hesitate. They wouldn't show us mercy, but will accept surrenders if offered." The pods launched, streaking across space toward the Drachnid flagship. Point defense fire tried to track them, but like their ships, human pods moved in ways the Drachnid targeting systems weren't designed to handle. Impact. Maya's pod smashed through the flagship's outer hull like a meteor. As she burst from the pod, artificial gravity suddenly shifted to Earth normal. All around her, she could hear the screams of Drachnid crew members suddenly trying to function under 3 times the gravity they were built for. "Engineering status." Riley's voice came through their comms. "Environmental override successful," Maya reported, watching as her Marines secured the corridor with textbook efficiency. "Their crew is completely incapacitated. We're moving toward their bridge." A few Drachnid security troops tried to resist, their cybernetic enhancements whining as they struggled to move under the crushing gravity. Maya almost felt sorry for them as her Marines easily subdued them. Almost. "Commander," Sarah's voice cut through the tactical chatter. "I'm detecting massive power fluctuations in their mining ships. I think they're trying to trigger some kind of chain reaction in the planet's crust." Riley's voice hardened. "They'd rather destroy the planet than let us save it. Lieutenant Patel, update your primary objective. Get to their mining control center and shut those beams down. We didn't come this far to watch another world die." Maya signaled her team, and they moved with purpose through the Drachnid ship's opulent corridors. The contrast between their luxury and the devastation they'd brought to the Kelleran world below only strengthened her resolve. The Deathworlders had arrived, bringing with them every harsh lesson their unforgiving world had taught them. But they'd also brought something the Drachnids had never expected: the unwavering determination to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The battle for the Kelleran Oasis system had begun, and with it, the galaxy's first glimpse of what humanity's primitive evolution had truly created. The breaking point. The battle for the Kelleran Oasis system had been raging for 6 hours when everything changed. Lieutenant Maya Patel and her Marines had just secured the mining control center on the Drachnid flagship when Dr. Chen's voice cut through their comms, her usual calm shattered by urgency. "Multiple FTL signatures detected. Massive fleet incoming. It's the Drachnid main battle group." Commander Riley's tactical display lit up with new contacts. Hundreds of them. The reinforcements they'd feared had arrived far sooner than expected. But something about their arrival pattern caught his attention. "They're not moving like the other Drachnid ships," he observed. Sarah analyzed their flight patterns. "Confirmed," she replied after a moment. "These ships are operating under much higher G-forces than the others. Their crews, Commander, I'm detecting biological signatures far closer to human norms." Admiral Santos leaned forward in her chair. "They've been studying us. These must be specially trained crews, perhaps even genetically modified to handle conditions closer to ours." The new Drachnid fleet opened fire, their tactics clearly adapted for close-range combat. 2 human frigates disappeared in balls of plasma fire before they could evade. The element of surprise was gone. All ships, fall back to defensive formation Delta, Riley ordered. Lieutenant Patel, what's your status? Maya ducked as sparks flew from a nearby console. Her Marines had secured the mining control center, but shutting down the drilling beams was proving more complex than expected. The system's locked down with some kind of deadman switch. If we shut it down wrong, it could trigger a planetary catastrophe. Commander, Sarah's voice was tense. I've decoded more of their communications. These mining beams, they're not just mining. They're specifically targeting the planetary mantle in a way that would trigger massive tectonic destabilization. They're trying to destroy the entire planet. Riley felt his blood run cold. Why would they? Because they can't have it. Admiral Santos finished grimly. If they can't exploit a world, they'd rather see it destroyed than let it remain habitable for species they consider inferior. On the planet below, the first earthquakes began. The Kelleran bunkers, built to withstand conventional bombardment, were never designed to handle this kind of planetary engineering. Kelleran casualties mounting, Sarah reported, her voice cracking. Their deepest shelters are beginning to collapse. We have maybe 2 hours before the damage becomes irreversible. Maya's team worked frantically at the mining controls, but the Drachnid systems actively resisted their efforts. Commander, we can't shut it down from here. The only way to stop this would be to destroy the mining ships themselves. But with that new fleet, Riley stared at the tactical display, watching as the enhanced Drachnid forces pressed their advantage. His fleet was now caught between 2 forces, the original ships they'd been handling easily, and this new group that seemed specifically designed to counter human tactics. Sir, Maya's voice was steady despite the chaos around her. I have an idea, but you're not going to like it. Go ahead, Lieutenant. The Drachnids designed these ships to be perfect environments, right? Everything regulated, everything controlled. What if we introduce a little chaos into their systems? Understanding dawned on Sarah's face. The environmental systems, if we could trigger a cascade failure, it would affect our boarding teams too, Admiral Santos warned. We're ready for that, Maya assured them. Our armor can handle vacuum, extreme temperatures, even radiation. Their crews can't. If we vent their atmosphere, trigger temperature spikes, and randomly cycle their gravity. Riley nodded slowly. They'd be fighting their own ships as well as us. But, Lieutenant, your teams would be trapped in hostile territory during the process. With all due respect, sir, we're Deathworlders. Being trapped in hostile territory is what we do best. The decision weighed heavily on Riley. He was about to deliberately strand dozens of human Marines in lethal conditions. But if they didn't act, an entire civilization would die beneath their feet. Do it, he ordered. All ships, prepare for Operation Chaos. Engineering teams, transmit the override codes to Lieutenant Patel's position. Maya, keep your people alive. Always do, sir. What followed would be remembered in galactic history as the Hour of Storm. Throughout the Drachnid fleet, environmental systems suddenly went haywire. Atmosphere vented into space. Gravity cycled randomly between 0 and crushing force. Temperature controls failed, turning some sections into furnaces and others into iceboxes. The enhanced Drachnid crews handled the changes better than their normal counterparts, but better was relative. They had been modified to handle higher gravity, yes, but not the complete environmental chaos that every human learned to endure from birth. Maya and her Marines moved through the ships like ghosts, their armor protecting them from conditions that sent even the enhanced Drachnids into shock. They became a nightmare story among the enemy crews, dark figures that appeared in the worst conditions, unstoppable and unaffected by the hell their ships had become. But even Deathworlders had limits. As the battle entered its critical phase, Riley watched his tactical displays with growing concern. They were winning, yes, but the cost was mounting. The question now was whether they could save the Keelerans before the price became too high to bear. Li GCE of DGKDEATH the Kelleran Oasis system had become a graveyard of ships. Disabled Drachnid vessels drifted through space, their once perfect environments now as hostile as the void itself. The human fleet, though battered, maintained their defensive formation around the wounded planet below. Inside the Drachnid flagship, Lieutenant Maya Patel and her surviving Marines fought through conditions that would kill most species in minutes. Mining Control Center secured, Maya reported, her armor systems compensating for the wildly fluctuating gravity. Dr. Chen, we're ready for the shutdown sequence. On the Thunderchild's bridge, Sarah Chen's fingers flew across her console, sending the override codes now. But Lieutenant, even if this works, the planet's taken severe damage. The Kelleran bunkers are failing. Commander Riley studied the tactical displays. The enhanced Drachnid fleet had been neutralized by Operation Chaos, their crews incapacitated by the environmental havoc Maya's team had unleashed. But the victory felt hollow with thousands of Kellerans still trapped below. Commander, Admiral Santos's voice was urgent. The Drachnid flagship's command core is transmitting something, some kind of general broadcast. The message cut through their comms, transmitted in multiple languages. This is Supreme Commander Vox of the Drachnid Imperium. Our forces are compromised. But know this, primitives. You have only delayed the inevitable. The Imperium will not suffer the existence of worlds that do not meet our standards. If we cannot have them, no one. The transmission cut off abruptly. On the tactical display, Riley watched as Maya's indicator reached the flagship's bridge. Supreme Commander secured, she reported coldly. He won't be giving any more speeches. Sir, Sarah's voice rose with excitement. The mining beams, they're shutting down. The planetary core is beginning to stabilize. But Riley's attention was on another set of readings. The Kelleran bunkers. Structural integrity at 17% and falling. We've stopped the planet's destruction, but the damage to their shelter network. Sarah's voice trailed off. They won't survive long enough for us to evacuate them conventionally. Riley stood from his command chair. Lieutenant Patel, how many of your Marines still have functioning armor? 43, sir. We lost 12 in the fighting. Why? Because we're about to attempt something incredibly stupid. Riley turned to Admiral Santos. Ma'am, I need your authorization for Emergency Protocol Omega. The Admiral's eyes widened. The untested atmospheric insertion protocol. Riley, that's suicide. No, he corrected. That's Tuesday on Earth. Our powered armor is designed to survive re-entry. The Kellerans don't have time for a careful rescue. So we're going to drop our Marines straight through the atmosphere to their bunker locations. Maya's laugh crackled through the comm. Finally, I was wondering when we'd get to do something really crazy. The next hour was a blur of desperate action. Human Marines, their armor reinforced with additional heat shielding, launched themselves from the captured Drachnid ships. They fell like meteors through the Kelleran atmosphere, using their suits' thrusters to guide themselves to the failing bunker locations. Maya led the first team down, her armor glowing white-hot as she pierced the cloud layer. The planet's surface was a nightmare of fractured continents and lava flows where the mining beams had done their work. But the Kellerans had built well. Pockets of their civilization still endured in the deepest shelters. Status report, Riley demanded as the first teams reached the bunkers. Structural supports deploying, Maya responded between heavy breaths. We're reinforcing the critical sections. Beginning civilian evacuation to stable zones. She paused. Sir, you need to see this. Her armor's cameras activated, showing the interior of the Kelleran shelter. The aliens, tall and graceful despite their ordeal, were not cowering in fear as expected. They were organized, calm, helping Maya's Marines set up emergency equipment. They're incredibly resilient, Maya observed. All this time we thought they were just victims needing rescue, but they've been fighting in their own way, keeping their people alive, preserving their knowledge, refusing to break. Not so different from us after all, Riley mused. Just adapted to different kinds of survival. The rescue operation continued for 3 days. Human Marines worked alongside Kelleran engineers, combining Earth ingenuity with Kelleran technology to stabilize the critical shelter systems. When it was done, over 200,000 Kellerans had been saved. In the aftermath, as the human fleet prepared to escort Kelleran refugee ships to safe havens, Admiral Santos received a transmission from Earth. The Drachnid Imperium had sued for peace, their confidence shattered by the defeat of their supposedly invincible forces. But it was the message from the Kelleran High Council that truly marked the moment's significance. "We once called you Deathworlders," the transmission began, "viewing your harsh evolution as a mark of primitiveness. We were wrong. You are not primitive. You are proof that strength and compassion can evolve together. Where we saw savages, we found protectors. Where we expected violence, we found determination to preserve life at all costs. The galaxy has much to learn from Earth's children." Commander Riley stood on the Thunderchild's observation deck, watching the combined human-Kelleran fleet prepare for departure. Dr. Chen joined him, her tablet displaying preliminary agreements for technological and cultural exchange between their species. "You know what this means," she said quietly. "Everything changes now. The galaxy will never see us the same way." Riley smiled. "Good. Maybe now they'll understand what we've known all along. Humanity didn't survive Earth's challenges by being the strongest or the most violent. We survived by learning to adapt, to protect, to work together against impossible odds. The real legacy of the Deathworlders, it turned out, wasn't their ability to endure harsh conditions. It was their determination to ensure that no one else would have to face such challenges alone. In proving their worth as warriors, they had revealed their true nature as guardians." And the galaxy, watching in amazement as the combined fleet jumped to FTL, finally understood. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't the ability to destroy worlds, but the will to protect them at any cost. The age of the Deathworlders had begun, but it would be remembered not for the terror they could inspire, but for the hope they brought to a galaxy that had forgotten the true meaning of strength.